Still trying to get more consistent with being here with you guys every Thursday, starting at 7. I know I'm a little late. I'm sorry. I fell a little behind in trying to get ready for today's stream. But that's okay. Today's stream, we are going to focus on what's happening in the economy and how it might affect rideshare drivers. And it's not going to be all doom and gloom, but I am going to be honest with you guys. And I'm also going to talk about what we can do to minimize the impact of what's happening around us. You know, that's always been my goal with my channel. And I think that a lot of what I've been saying for about the last year and a half, we're going to start seeing why it's important to have been doing that. And I'm going to show that using real examples. And I'm even going to show my personal finances. I'm going to start talking about my net worth and where we're at and where we're going. I'm going to start doing that every single stream. And today's focus is just what's happening in the economy and how it's going to affect us. So the first thing I want to talk about is we're going to talk about politics a little bit, or without getting too political. I want to focus on talking about how the decisions that are being made in the White House may affect rideshare drivers. Now, just because I say that it might happen doesn't mean it's something that I want to happen. I always want to be very clear about that. Just because I'm trying to warn you guys about something, right? We're business owners, right? We should always be looking at how the economy is going and making business decisions that affect our longevity, right? We want to have the foresight to be able to see, okay, this is happening. This might impact my business. I need to make a decision that can help insulate me from that. And I think that that's where we are right now. And if you continue to wait any longer, it's going to be too late. So let me pull up the first thing I want to bring to your attention. So the first story we're going to start with today is just looking at the firings that are happening in the government. Now, this is not about whether you agree or disagree with what is happening and doing, with what Trump is doing. This is about how this can affect you and what's happening right now. So this is from the AP. It says a comprehensive look at Doge firing and layoffs so far. So we're gonna quickly go through, see what's happening, and then I'm going to tell you what my opinion is on how it will affect rideshare based off of past experience. So it says thousands of federal government employees have been shown the door in the first month of President Donald Trump's administration, as the White House and its Department of Government Efficiency fire both new and career workers, tell agency leaders to plan for large-scale reductions in force and freeze trillions of dollars in federal grants. So they're telling us straightforward that we are firing people. We are going to continue firing people. And that's something you got to keep in mind. It's affected more than just the nation's capital region, home to about 20% of the 2.4 million members of the civilian federal workforce, which does not include military personnel and postal workers. More than 80% of that workforce lives outside the Washington area. Your first thought might be, hey, I don't live in Washington. What does this have to do with me? And it will affect you. But if you do live in Washington, this could affect you there are some positives to this where you might have to deal with traffic, right? We're seeing that a large amount of people are trying to sell their homes in Washington. So if you're in the market to buy a house, the average home price has decreased by, I think it was about $135,000. Average home price decrease, Washington. It says home prices, and that's Washington State. I just want DC, Washington, DC. All right, so this is from January. It says January 2025, the median home price in Washington, D.C. was $553,000. Still a lot of money for a house, which was 9.71% decrease from the previous year. That was based on data from MLS and public records. Like we're seeing a massive amount of people list their homes all at once, and it's causing house pricing to go down. And a lot of you out there probably like, good, that's great, which is fine. You know, if you live in DC and these politicians are making your prices go up, I understand you're going to be in a better position to buy a home than you were before. But also keep in mind that if you're a rideshare driver that lives in Washington, the people who are selling their homes are probably trying to leave because they're not going to work, and that could affect the supply and demand for rides. So that is something you need to factor into your business. And just wait, those of you who don't live there, there's still ways this will affect you in the larger scale of everything that's happening. We'll get to it. Going back to the article, it says there's no official figure available of the total firings or layoffs. The Associated Press tallied how agencies are being affected based off of AP reporting and statements from lawmakers and employee unions. Here's a look at some of the broad and specific ways federal agencies and employees are being affected by the administration's reduction as of Wednesday. So Wednesday as of yesterday. So this is covering the deferred resignation proposal for federal workers. The White House has offered a deferred resignation proposal in exchange for financial incentives like months of paid leave to almost all federal employees who opted to leave their jobs by February 6th. But just before that deadline, a federal judge blocked Trump's plan, wanting to hear arguments from the administration and labor unions, which said the offer was illegal. According to the Office of Personnel Management, and 75,000 federal employees had accepted the offer as of February 12th. So again, not all of the federal workers are in Washington, but a good chunk of them are. And what you're going to see is the people are going to go through a period of uncertainty. When people do go through a period of uncertainty, they don't spend their money as much, right? And we can look back in time to when the pandemic just ended, right? I started driving in the pandemic. So that's where my history with Uber and Lyft started. The first time there was a widespread realization that the pandemic was done for rideshare drivers and that the great money we were earning during that period was going to start declining was when the tech companies had their layoffs, their massive layoffs, if you remember that. And when they had those layoffs, it's not as if the tech bros who are making $250,000 a year suddenly became rideshare drivers. It was that the industries that were supported by them going to work fell apart, and those people became rideshare drivers. We're talking about, this is just a random example. If you had a breakfast shop right across the street from a business that gets shut down, those are the type of people who are going to start looking for a new job because they're getting fired because the money that was flowing in and out isn't there anymore. Those are going to be the people who start becoming rideshare drivers and create more saturation. Now, if you're in Washington, I feel really bad for you. You're probably going to start feeling the saturation first and very strongly. And I'm going to keep an eye on it. But you're also going to have to realize, if I'm in a vacation town, people come here to vacation all the time. When people are uncertain about their futures, that's one of the first things that goes. Vacation. People aren't going to be spending money when they're not even sure if they're going to have a job. Or some of them just straight up don't. We're seeing a lot of firings, and the first place people like to go, even if it's a transitionary period, is rideshare. The gig apps. It's the lowest barrier of entry, right? If you could pass a criminal background check, you have a license, depending on which one you want to do, you're over a certain age. It's the easiest, fastest way to get a job. Most of us, myself included, we started doing this as an intermediary to something else, right? Most of us don't wake up and say, I want to be a rideshare driver. That's my career. We fell into this, and that's okay. If you play your cards right, you can make a good amount of money, right? I personally don't believe it's a great long-term thing. I think it's something that should be used as a stepping stone into something else. But now we're going to have a mass wave of other people who are going to start stepping into rideshare. And it's not just the government workers, but we'll get into that. So this one is for the probationary employee layoffs, which I think this is a bigger amount. Says there have been wide-ranging layoffs of probationary employees, those generally on the job for less than a year who have yet to gain civil service protection. Potentially hundreds of thousands are affected. This isn't just in Washington. On February 13th, the administration ordered agencies to lay off nearly all such workers. According to the government data maintained by OPM, 220,000 federal employees had less than a year on the job as of March 2024. It's a lot of people. This one's for the Department of Veterans Affairs, right? A lot of you have VAs in your city. I know I have one. This could be affecting your local populace too. On February 13th, the Department of Veteran Affairs announced the dismissal of more than 1,000 employees who had served for less than 2 years. According to Sean Pan-Murray, Democrat from Washington, that included researchers working on cancer treatment, opioid addiction, prosthetics, and burn pit exposure. Again, I'm not going to get deep into whether this is good or bad, whether you should be for it or against it. We're just talking about how it's going to impact us. And we have the education department, just says 39 people have been fired from the education department. There's nothing crazy there. The energy department, I believe they were rehired. We're not really going to get into the politics of that one. So the Department of Health and Human Services, the jobs of more than 5,000 probationary employees are on the line at the Department of Health and Human Services. On February 14th, officials for the Center for Disease Control and Prevention were told they were losing 1,300 probationary employees, about 1/10 of the agency's workforce, but the final number was closer to 700, according to 2 CDC officials who spoke on the condition of anonymity. Now, I know the CDC is based out of, I think, Atlanta, right? I think the CDC is in Atlanta. Let's verify this. Let's be sure. Yeah, CDC mostly based out of Atlanta. So if you're in Atlanta, you need to pay attention to that. You know, if you're currently picking up people who work there, start talking to them. And actually, no matter where you are, right, you should always be trying to dig for information from your passengers, right? If I know that there is a government body in Charleston, even if it's a state body, right, I'm asking questions. I'm like, how do you feel about your job? Do you feel secure? Here's a really good example. Let's step away from the government firings. That's an easy, direct correlation that we can see. Let's talk about the fact that a lot of government grants have been frozen, right? Might not seem like a big deal, but if you have programs in your city that exist purely on the funding of government, which I'm not getting into if that's a good thing or a bad thing, they should probably need multiple sources. That agency, that thing, no matter what they were doing, is no longer going to exist anymore, right? And indefinitely. We don't know if that funding's coming back. We don't know if that program is just going to straight up get canceled. And that's going to, I'm going to go ahead and say this. I'm predicting that there will be nationwide a recession, right? And I'm not trying to fearmonger. So what I want to do is I want to establish what it would mean to have a recession so that when it happens, I can say that I said I saw this coming. And this is a guess, right? I'm not an economist. This is based off of some metrics that I've seen. And let me show you one of those metrics. First, let's define a recession. I'm gonna say, how does the government define a recession? I want something that's that can be measured, it's concrete. I know there's a lot of different ways that people do it. Let me see. Okay, here we go. This is a good one. This is what I'm going to use. So it says, according to common rule of thumb, the government defines a recession as 2 consecutive quarters of negative GDP growth, meaning that the gross domestic product declines for 2 consecutive 3-month periods, indicating a significant decline in economic activity across the economy, right? The reason why I think that this will happen is, one, we're seeing the layoffs. We're seeing that unemployment is going to increase. When unemployment increases, right, the amount of money that people start spending decreases, which would decrease the GDP, right? Now, will it be significant? I think so, especially considering the fact that the grants that the government were giving out, there's some that were going to farmers. You know what? Let me pull up that story. I think that's a pretty good story to highlight how these disappearing grants will cause people to spend less money. All right, so here's one. It's just we're not gonna go through the whole thing. Like, I'm not trying. Like again, I'm not trying to get too political. I'm just trying to paint the picture of what's actually happening because it's easy to not realize what's going on, especially when you're just out there in your car hustling and just not paying attention to this stuff because it's bad for your health. Like I get it. I'm not. I don't fault anyone who doesn't follow along with this stuff, but I follow along with it because I need to know what's happening out there so I can have the foresight to do something about it. So it says farmers report missing millions of dollars of funding that were promised by the US Department of Agriculture, despite promises from the Trump administration that a federal funding freeze would not apply to projects directly benefiting individuals. On his first day in office, President Trump ordered a USDA freeze to freeze funds for several programs designated by President Joe Biden in his energy health law from 2022. It's not really the point. We're going to move forward. Farmers who signed contracts with the USDA under those programs paid up front to build fencing, plant new crops, and install renewable energy systems with guarantees that the federal government would issue grants and loans to cover at least part of the costs. Now with that money frozen, they're on the hook, right? So first, I want to say that this is a good example of why you should not get in bed with government. I know that there are things out there that, benefit people, but I would have never signed up for this deal because to me, this is kind of like debt. It's not really, right? So like if I were a farmer and this is what happened to, there's a specific case I'm talking about now. He took out a loan to get these projects done to expand his farm. And then now he's not getting that money reimbursed. And that's a bad idea, right? At minimum, he should have paid it out of his pocket and then hope for the best. It's the government, but this is an example of how now that these farm owners, and we're not just talking about large corporations, we're talking about independent farm owners here. Now that these farm owners have their money tied up in projects that they're not getting refunded for, they're not going to spend money, right? In fact, they're gonna be hurting if something doesn't happen here, and all of their employees that they could have would also be hurting. And I'm pretty sure this is going to affect other parts of the market, right? If the person who built these fencing for these farmers can't get their money, they're gonna have to start laying off people. Like it's gonna have a snowball effect in a way that's profound that even I can't see all of. But I know that it's gonna happen, right? I know that it's gonna have cascading effects, and I don't know what those cascading effects are, but I'm predicting that it's gonna hurt the economy, right? So we have job loss, we have less money being spread through the economy, and in the long term it might be good. In the short term, I think it's bad, right? So that's all I'm talking about here. So let's get back to, where are we? We're going to get back to the firings. We might be able to skip past this, right? So I think I've made my point that people are getting fired. Those people are going to become rideshare drivers, and then those people aren't going to work anymore, which is going to lower demand. And then those people might become rideshare drivers, which saturates the market even more, right? And if that weren't bad enough, if that wasn't problematic enough, now we have to talk about the one that happened today, because this is one of the biggest ones. Again, won't get political, but I'm trying to paint a picture for you guys that will carry through the rest of this video. It says the IRS will lay off thousands of probationary workers in the middle of tax season, according to two people familiar with the agency's plan. So this article is a little dated, even though it came out yesterday. Today, the IRS fired, I think it was almost 7,000 people. IRS fire. We'll go, so 6,000. So it says IRS fires 6,000 employees as Trump slashes U.S. government, right? And he's doing what he said he would do, better or worse. It's not the point, right? I'm gonna get a different source because that's gonna be hard to read. This is asking for money. A lot of these news websites want more money, man. Another one, more money. It's like, who can read news anymore? It says the IRS fired thousands of probationary employees on Thursday following a government trend that started last week. An IRS employee told Federal News Network Thursday that the IRS fired about 6,500 probationary employees nationwide on Thursday and were escorted out of the agency facilities. Right, so like, people are getting fired, people are getting let go, and unemployment is one of the like strongest indicators of like what's going to start happening with the economy. And then the next, so rideshare drivers, our business, like, we have to contend with unemployment, right? When people are getting fired, that's going to increase like the saturation of how many people want to be drivers, and it's going to decrease the amount of people that want to go out and spend money on rideshare, going to parties or whatever, and not even going to work anymore, right? So those are like two major things. Like, another thing that we're gonna have to start dealing with, and some places are already dealing with, is going to be the robotaxis. It's going to be self-driving cars. And I know a lot of you are skeptical, or maybe I'm the skeptic, and you don't believe it's going to have an impact on your business. And I don't see how that's possible. And I don't see how you can like believe that unless you're just not aware of what's happening out there. So this particular article, it says Uber CEO wants to partner with Tesla on robotaxis because no one wants to compete against Tesla or Elon. Already, currently, if you are in Phoenix, it might be in a couple other places, if you pull up the Uber app as a passenger and you try to order a ride, you will have an option between a Waymo, a self-driving car, or a human being. And Uber said that 50% of the time, someone picks a human being. That means the other 50% of the time, someone's picking a Waymo. So even if in some of those places, they're not allowed on the highways or they're not allowed on the airports, one Waymo, from the math I've done in a previous video, is able to do about 220 rides per week, right? So if you have just 10 of them in your city, that's 2,200 rides that are now happening autonomously that wasn't happening with a person, or that used to happen with a person. They're going to have an impact on drivers. And it might not replace drivers 100%, right? But that's not the doomsday scenario. The doomsday scenario has already been happening before autonomous drivers. The doomsday scenario is Uber and Lyft are no longer a profitable venture for people to make money to survive on. That is something markets, certain cities have been struggling with before the introduction of self-driving cars. With the introduction of self-driving cars, it's only going to make that happen faster. So when you see other YouTubers, when you see other articles, when you see other people say that it's going to be 10 years before self-driving cars replace humans, that could be right. But that does not mean that it's going to be 10 years before it's no longer profitable for you to be an Uber or Lyft driver. A lot of people feel that way today. So anything that can join in that battle for that dollar from a driver is going to have an impact, right? And there are things that I'm trying to do that I'm going to teach you in this video in order to shield yourself as much as possible from that happening. But let's go and read what the Uber CEO says about wanting to partner with Tesla, who's launching the first robotaxi in June in Austin, according to Tesla. We'll see if it actually happens. So it says, during an earnings call last month, Tesla CEO Elon Musk said that the electric vehicle maker would start offering paid rides in June for its full self-driving robotaxi service. Now Uber CEO Dara Khosrowshahi is making it clear that he doesn't want to compete with Tesla. He wants to partner with the company to offer robotaxi rides through Uber's ride-hailing platform. He said this before, and he's saying it again. Listen, quote, "No one wants to compete against Tesla or Elon if you can help it." Khosrowshahi told technology analyst Ben Thompson in an interview published in Thompson's newsletter on Thursday their capabilities are pretty extraordinary, but I think the same economic laws apply to them. And from a business perspective, I think that this is a good idea for Tesla to try to be the app where all the self-driving cars congregate. but that's not great for drivers. That's not great for human drivers, right? That is like more competition. You're competing with humans and you're competing with robots. If you don't have confidence that the robots can take your money and that's what you want to bet on, then fine, go ahead. But that's not where I would put my money. So Kashasari said that Dara said that Tesla would benefit by allowing its robotaxis to offer rides through Uber instead of rides accessing the robotaxi solely through the Tesla app. They could tap into rides with self-driving cars through Uber too. Working with Uber could help maximize Tesla's profits by expanding its reach. Uber completed an average of 33 million trips per day, according to the company's latest earnings report. So it's a good point here. Uber already has the customer base. Tesla has the product, and they're just trying to mix the two together. And it's with Waymo. Waymo does have their own app, the Waymo One app, and Waymo is also available in certain markets on the Uber app. So they're doing both. And I don't think Tesla will do this. Tesla's very big on doing things themselves, but it wouldn't be a bad idea for them to do both for their own benefit, right? This is very bad for us if they were to do both. And here's the scenario. If they do both, right? Let's say they don't even do both. Let's say they don't use Uber, right? So let's say they use the Tesla app or whatever it ends up being. And all it's going to take is one successful time for someone using the Tesla app to be less likely to open up Uber and Lyft. You'll have people who will probably do price analysis and time constraints based off of what they want, right? You currently have people that do Uber, people that do Lyft. But an example of someone in Phoenix who, when they open the Uber app, they're able to see the Waymos and they're able to see the humans. At least they're still in the Uber app. In California, you have people who use the Waymo One app, like to pick up their children, who probably aren't opening the Uber and Lyft app, right? Unless it's like there's something inconvenient happening with that Waymo. And that's just based off of what I've been reading and what I've been seeing online. A lot of people are like, I would never take this because humans are slow at adopting to new things. But the people that have been taking them constantly say they will continue to take them because the experience is better. They don't feel obligated to tip. They don't have to deal with a true random. They don't know who's going to pick them up. I mean, they know eventually, but they don't know what they're literally getting into at the time of the ride. So I can understand that people think that this won't adopt quickly, right? I understand that, but I think you're wrong. I straight up just think you're wrong if you think that. Dara added that if Tesla puts their robotaxis on Uber's network, the self-driving cars would join 150,000 other Tesla vehicles on Uber today, adding to an established presence. It would be cool, right? So Tesla, unlike these other apps, plan to give people the ability to manage fleets. And according to Elon, we don't really know if this will happen or when it will happen. He's saying that anyone with Tesla would be able to just have their car drive, which that would be cool, right? If that's what it is, that's something I might be interested in the future once I clean up my finances, which we'll talk about later in today's video. So it says this isn't the first time that Dara has indicated an interest in partnering with Tesla. In an interview with Financial Times that aired in October, he said that he would love to bring Tesla's robotaxis to Uber when the technology was ready. He said that he aimed to collaborate with the autonomous industry, pointing to partnerships announced in late 2024 with Alphabet, Waymo, and Cruise. Cruise is done. You don't have to worry about them anymore. They couldn't do it. They couldn't make it. Waymo is actually doing things that should make you worry. They are investing into cheaper electric cars from China. One of them has been recalled already. So, you know, they're working on their issues. But let's see. Waymo recall. Nope, that's not it. That's the wrong one. That's the Zeekr recall. That's what the new car model is called, I believe. That's Facebook. All right, hold on. We're going to find it. We're going to find it. Oh, here we go. So this is what it looks like. It actually looks really nice. If I could buy one of these and not pay crazy import fees, I'd consider it. I think it costs $13,000. All right, so it says Zeekr doesn't sell any of the electric vehicles in the United States, and as long as President Trump remains in power, it's unlikely it will anytime soon. To be fair, it doesn't. There have been crazy tariffs placed on Chinese cars because the government is worried that it will undercut American cars. So this is actually something that both sides of the aisle typically agree on. It says, however, Zeekr is behind the latest robotaxis being tested by Waymo in the US. And early this month, the Chinese company issued not one, not two, but 3 recalls on the same day, right? So they are having some issues, which is good for us. The Waymo robotaxi is known as the RT, of which 30 examples were built in China between December 1st, 2024 and January 8th, 2025, with plans to bring them into the States. Of these models landed on the US shores on January 27, 2025, but upon examination, it failed to meet several federal motor vehicle safety standards, right? If you import something to America, it still has to be like certified, I think. I don't really know what the process is for that. It says the first recall relates to safety concerns about the inflatable curtain and passenger airbags, important stuff. During front impact testing at 40 km, 25 miles per hour on a 30-degree angle when occupants were unbelted, Zeekr found that the crash test dummy shifted towards the right, and while the airbag stopped the dummy's head, they failed to provide enough protection. So what I'm assuming is happening is this is probably the first rounds of testing that these have gone in America. America has very strict safety stuff, which is why you might find that certain car models that are international don't exist here. Usually it's because the safety standards just aren't where they need to be. I know the old Nissan GTR was an example of this. Nissan just decided not to sell them here. They eventually started selling them here, but the older models, you can only get them if they're 25 years or older due to some classic law that exists. But whatever, the point is here, America is very good with their safety laws, which is pretty good. And it's protecting us from, I don't know if it's protecting us from Google getting more of these cars, but it's also making our cars more expensive. But whatever, I'm not here to get into that. To resolve this issue, Zeekr will fit a physical stop in the passenger set rail. So, right, they're already fixing the issue, right? And there's other recalls. We don't need to necessarily get into all of the recalls, but this is a progression in what's happening, right? This is a progression in the story. I've been telling you that, Google has been invested into getting cheaper fleets. They are working with Hyundai. They have a plant that they're building in Georgia where, Waymo is also expanding to Atlanta in. So they're making moves to put themselves in a position to make cars cheaper because the cars that they have now are extremely expensive. And they're making progress, right? And they're not the only ones making progress with self-driving cars. We're seeing Tesla's making their progress too. So this will all impact us, right? On one hand, we have people who are getting fired, right? That's going to cause people to spend less money, not go out as much. It's going to cause some of those people to become rideshare drivers in your market. And we're having to also contend with the fact that government grants have been stopped for a while now. And the money that was circulating into the economy is going to double down on the fact that people are not going to go out as much, and double down that they need to become Uber and Lyft drivers or food delivery drivers. And then we have self-driving cars that are launching in multiple cities, major cities, right? From multiple people. We have Tesla launching in June. It's just in a couple months in Austin, right? Austin, Texas. We have Waymo expanding to Atlanta, Miami. I think they're in Phoenix, LA. They're going to another town in California. They've dropped a couple names that they're already testing in, right? They're already testing in Atlanta. I'm not making this up. It's just a matter of when they're done testing, and they're picking difficult places. So if they're focusing on difficult places and this technology learns and teaches other cars, right? For example, if one car hits a pothole, it's going to tell the other 60 cars in the fleet, hey, there's a pothole here, right? And they're going to all learn from that information. And they are picking difficult places. Once they solve those issues, their expansion is going to be very, very fast. And it takes a long time for us humans to get a grapple on our finances, right? It might take a year or two to get a good paying job, right? Especially with unemployment going up, it's going to be harder, right? If my advice to you was, okay, because of what's happening, I recommend getting a solid job that still allows you to work during busy hours for rideshare. It's going to be harder to do that. It's going to be harder to get that job as unemployment increases. People are going to start working those jobs, right? And then yeah, so those are like the things I want you guys to be aware of, and I want you guys paying attention to. Let's see where we're going next here. I'm gonna check in the comments to see if you guys are saying anything. My comments are broken on my end, so I got to do it the old school way, which is fine. All right, David's here. Hey, David, thank you for coming here. I see Audra's here as well. Audra, my wife, I love her. Real Slayer says hi. What's up? William says hello. Hi, William. I see you. Good evening, bro. I'm in Chicago and I drive via. And I drive via is low key back. I don't really know what you mean, but I did see some news about Chicago, and we can look at it real quick. I wasn't going to cover it. I was going to push it off to next week because I'm underprepared for today. But I know that Chicago, they're starting to try to mobilize, right? They're trying to do what has been done in Boston or has been done in LA, and they're trying to get some rights going. Let's see. Chicago rideshare. Guarantees, I think. Let's see. I wish I didn't delete that article out. I just read it today. Okay, here it is. Found it. Found it. No, this is old. Here it is. Yes, here it is. I don't know why. I feel like Google's getting worse. Because it's becoming increasingly more difficult to find things that I've already seen. Like, it's insane. But here it is. It says rideshare drivers rally outside City Hall. Here's what they're demanding. And this is in Chicago. A caravan of more than 24 rideshare drivers rallied outside Chicago City Hall on Wednesday morning, demanding action on a proposed ordinance that would increase driver pay and require passenger verification. Wednesday, as in yesterday. The Fair Share Ordinance, also known as the Rideshare Living Wage and Safety Ordinance, is currently in committee, but rideshare drivers hope it will soon be put to a vote. Mike Rodriguez, 22 Ward, is the sponsor. So this is something I need to be tracking. I guess this is something that just started recently because this is the first time I'm hearing about it. This ordinance would make verification mandatory, so nobody would be able to opt out or choose not to do it. And frankly, that's what we need to keep drivers safe, said Lori Simmons with Chicago Gig Alliance. I agree with this. This might cause... I think what Uber and Lyft are worried about is if you force people to do this, then less people might take rideshare. But I think that the safety here is more important. So I'm not on their side with that. Says supporters of the ordinance say Uber and Lyft have created a rigged system that maximizes profits but endangers the safety of drivers. Effort to pass the ordinance was renewed following a string of armed robberies and carjackings. Most of the news I see of something bad happening to drivers, like robberies or murders and deaths, usually come out of Chicago. If I'm from New York City and I've lived close to projects, I've walked through them, I've been in that system, and I think that I would be more afraid to drive around in Chicago than I would anywhere else in America. So for those of you in Chicago who are doing this, shout outs to you. You're doing more than I probably would in that scenario. It says the proposal would raise driver pay from 60 cents per mile and 20 cents per minute to $1.85 per mile and 65 cents per minute for any regular Uber, Lyft, or Via ride, with the rate increasing annually with consumer pricing index. Is this what you were talking about? Yeah, you said I drive Via is low key back. Okay, I've never heard of this. So now I understand what you're saying. What is Via? What is Via Rideshare? It says Via is a rideshare service that offers on-demand shared rides. Via's app allows users to book rides, and Via's algorithm matches riders headed to the same direction. Via aims to make transportation more affordable, sustainable, and convenient. And you're saying it's back. So you're saying like it's been you've been having a positive experience with this. That's good. Interesting. This is the website. This is really interesting. Let's see if they have a YouTube video we can watch. This is from 3 years ago. This is from 1 year ago. Let's check this one out.
People, vehicles, and technology. It's what makes a Via-powered service shine. For more than a decade, we've built a wealth of knowledge through partnerships with over 650 cities and transit agencies in nearly 50 countries. Our teams are embedded in the communities in which we operate.
Anywhere I go around the city, I see people and they like, oh, it's the Via driver. It's really like I'm part of the community.
This local presence allows us to build strong relationships with our partners, keep a close eye on day-to-day vehicle operations, and ensure our best-in-class tech is always running smoothly. Via is by far the most experienced on-demand transit operator in the world.
Okay, that's good enough for me. I'll do some more research into it, but I'm happy that there's an alternative service that isn't Uber and Lyft that's working for you. GoGigit says, if Tesla becomes a partner with the WEF, like Uber has done, then and only then will Elon and Darren make a deal. I'm like, I know that like the World Economic Forum, I don't know how strong the ties are within that. So I'm going to take your word for it. I am overdue. I need to look deeply into the WEF, but I don't see Elon partnering with anyone. He doesn't. I don't think he needs to, and I don't think he thinks he needs to. So, GoGiga says, "Are you going to buy a fleet of EVs, Tristan, for rideshare residual income?" I might. It depends, right? I have the biggest issue that I have that I need to see solved is who gets in trouble when a self-driving car unalives someone. I have to search for the right word. Like I don't want to have a fleet of cars for that car to cause someone to lose their life and be held responsible for it. My life is too short. I'm not trying to spend it in jail or even in court, to be honest. So I would need to see that happen first. So that's the biggest roadblock. The second thing that would need to happen is it would have to just be financially worth it, right? I know that I can get away with, I can claim I'll do certain things financially just for the rideshare of it all. But my goal is to no longer have to sit in a seat and make money. My goal is to not actively have to make money and increase the amount of ways that I can passively make money. My YouTube channel is an example of that. Sure, I have to actively sit here, I have to actively edit the videos. But once that's done and it's out there in the ether, it's something that continuously generates income for me. But I do believe in multiple sources of income. I want to spend more time being a YouTuber, but the pay is way on the back end, right? It takes a lot of effort to get your channel up to the point where you're making enough money to not have to have other jobs. So instead of focusing on that, I've been grinding away as a rideshare driver because I don't have limits to how much I can work. I'm not a salary employee. I can just go out there and make money, and it gives me some flexibility. And I'm going to do that until I'm debt free. And once I am debt free, my average monthly bills between both my wife and I are like 2,500 to 3,000 per month. Like 3,000 is on the high end. We can get by with 2,000. And that will put me in a position to where I'm getting my bills closer to the income that I'm making on YouTube. If I have to like supplement some of that with driving on the weekends, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, that's fine. But I can essentially go from being a full-time rideshare driver to being a part-time rideshare driver and like trying to become a full-time YouTuber. And that's kind of what I want from you guys, not to become YouTubers. I want you guys to be in a position to where, one, you're insulated from what's happening in the economy, no matter who's in office, whether it's Trump, whether it was Biden. Recessions are a normal cycle that happens every couple of years. Personally, I feel this one is being forced more quickly, right? And whatever, right? Good or bad, whatever. But I think that it's moments like this that I'm really trying to insulate myself from and teach you guys to insulate yourselves from as well, right? I want to be in a position that, generally speaking, I want to be in a position that it doesn't matter who's in office, because I've taken care of myself financially, that there's nothing that they could do to really have a negative impact on what I have going on in my household. My goal right now is to build a moat so that decisions that are made outside of my household don't affect me inside of my household, whether it's with Uber, whether it's with Lyft, whether it's with my local government creating a pay structure because they thought it would be helpful, but it turns out that it wasn't. I'm trying to insulate myself from any external decision-making from having an impact on what goes on internally. And that's what I want for you guys. That's the main reason I even started a YouTube channel. And it's the main thing I'm trying to convince people of today. So, yeah. David says, I saw the Cybertruck in person for the first time yesterday. How have you gone this long without seeing a Cybertruck? I know it's a little jarring, but I kind of like it. I like that they try something different. And, you know, it's not the best looking thing out there. There's some with some really nice wraps that make it look very good. But I don't think it's the worst thing either. I think it's okay. I think it's fine. It's fine. David says the pictures online can't convey how it looks in person. I agree with you. Gonna suggest they have a contract with the university, so that's really good too. Yeah, that's actually really good. I'm gonna look more into that. I'm gonna actually write it down because I forget things, so I'm gonna take a note on that. I wanna look into like how that rideshare provider works. I had some other articles about other rideshare services that are popping up, but I wasn't very organized today. So we'll cover that next week, right? Let me look at my calendar. Next week. Yeah. So next week, Thursday will be my last podcast for a while. I'll tell you guys, I was going to keep it a secret, but I'm not going to do that. So March is, in my opinion, in my market, the busiest month of the year. And I'm going to try to make over $10,000 in March. I'm going to work every day. I'm going to, work as much as I can, do as much as I can. And you guys probably won't hear from me until April. I'll probably take a few days, just take a break, but I'll put out a video, right? Whether I'm successful or not, I'm going to put out a video breaking down all of my earnings, all of that good stuff. So next week will be the last time I do a podcast before I get ready to do that. And then after that, the next time I'll do a podcast will be the first week of April. So that's a little heads up. It's a little thank you for being here on the live stream. For those of you who are watching later, thank you for watching later and getting to this point. Now you know the secrets of what's going down. Now you know. All right, let's move on with these stories. Let's see what we have next. All right, so this next one is for my people, my drivers in Vegas that I want you guys to be aware of. There's a new rideshare service that's specifically just for women. All right, Atlanta already has something like this. I think it's called Her Ride. And now this is coming to Vegas. I think that Vegas is a place that can be very sketchy, and men in general can be very sketchy, right? Women would actually prefer to have bears around them than men sometimes, I guess. And this is going to impact your earnings, right? If you're a woman, this could be a positive impact on your earnings. If you're a man. Now, so I want to get you guys familiar with the concept of deaths by 1,000 cuts, right? I don't think there will be any one big thing that takes rideshare and make it not worth doing anymore. For those of you who believe it's still worth doing, I believe it's worth doing in my market. You could be in a market where it's not worth doing. It's going to be a lot of different things taking from the pieces of rideshare. We're going to have the autonomous vehicles taking from the pieces of rideshare, right? Even if, right? Or yeah, I don't want to get too deep into it. Autonomous vehicles are going to take some pieces. We're going to have other rideshare companies that will pop up that will take pieces. Now, you might be fortunate enough to be part of that rideshare company. Like in this example, if you're the woman, this is, you now have 3 options: Uber, Lyft, and this woman only thing. But if you're a man, you don't. So women who are going to now use this woman only rideshare service in Vegas, if you're a man doing rideshare, which is about 80% of the rideshare drivers are men, it's going to start siphoning it off, right? And it might not be a big thing on its own, but you add the autonomous vehicles in there, you add the layoffs in there, you add people spending less money, it's going to matter. Less people visiting Vegas because they've been fired, it's going to matter, right? So let's see what they're saying about this new rideshare platform. A new rideshare option for women is now available in the Las Vegas Valley. It's similar to Uber and Lyft, but with a new spin by putting safety and comfort in the front seat. Megan is the founder of Allegna. I'm gonna go with that for now. She started the company back in 2023 after having her own negative experience with rideshare. She said the goal is to provide a friendly, secure, and affordable option for women who need to get around. Now, I have spoken with some women, and I phrased it in a way that I guess was charitable to rideshare, but if a drunk woman has an option between a self-driving car and a man, who do you think they're going to pick? We already know they picked the bear. So, and I'm not like, I say this in jest, but I'm still trying to paint a picture for drivers who believe that people aren't going to take self-driving cars. 50% of them already do in places where it's offered right beside a human driver. And I'm not trying to scare you. Not my goal. The goal here is I want you to do what's necessary to protect yourself financially. That's what I want you to do. She says, our service go anywhere from standard rides to the airport. It's a ride to and from the doctor's appointments. Sometimes the women need us to hold their hand, and we'll do that for them and be support for them. I don't know what that means. Both drivers, and I guess that's why I'm a man. Both drivers and passengers are vetted to ensure both parties are at ease. Allegna also requires a 24-hour notice before booking a ride through call, text, or email. That's going to be pretty big with the older crowd. She says that she decided to expand in Las Vegas due to numerous requests. I've had a ton of women in Vegas and Michigan and LA say, please come. So it's something that people want. Monica Martinez Simmons says she's surprised there isn't a resource like this already in the Valley. Well, it depends. I know Lyft has their Woman Connect feature, and I think Uber's trying to copy it and do something similar. It says we all have different life experiences, and I think it's all about, especially for young women, feeling very comfortable about who they are driving with. Simmons explained, we find ourselves in areas that aren't familiar to us, and I think it's a matter of comfort and safety. Grace Holland said that these types of rideshares can go a long way in her busy schedule. When I was working and I was pregnant, and I would take it when the walk was very far and feeling too big. And ever since my car crash, I've been taking Uber or Lyft. All right, so I guess this is her in the middle. These women look very happy. She said that Allegna is much more than a rideshare option, but is also a way to create a tight-knit community. All right, it's empowering. I'm skipping through a little bit here. There are currently 3 Las Vegas rideshare drivers. In her whole platform, there are currently 3 Las Vegas rideshare drivers. Standard ride charges per mileage. Hourly rates are charged for longer services if a driver is needed to accompany the passenger to an appointment. So I guess that's what they meant by holding their hand. Discounts are available for seniors and groups. I don't think drivers want to do this. I think that this could be a turnoff, even for women drivers. People just want to drive. I don't think they want to accompany them to the passenger. Now, if you're saying you're going to pay more to have them wait, maybe, but that pay would have to be really good. It'd have to be worth it. All right, so this is smaller scale. If maybe this is a mistake, but it says 3 drivers. I don't know. David says the 24-hour notice limitation sounds like a huge limitation. I agree to an extent. I know that drivers do private rides, and a lot of them have that same wish, but it is a problem. Jo says, do you think Uber is still hiring drivers in Los Angeles? Yeah. What do you mean? Are you in Los Angeles? Like there is no market except New York City and Toronto where there's a cap to how many drivers can exist. And the only reason there's a cap in New York City and Toronto is because some form of a government body put that there. Uber and Lyft don't like that cap. Uber and Lyft are incentivized to put as many drivers on the platform as possible because that gives them the ability to decrease prices. The more people they have that will take lower fares is the better for Uber and Lyft. LA is to the best of my knowledge a saturated market, probably one of the biggest saturated market, and I'm pretty sure anyone can go and sign up to be a driver right now. Let's check, right? Let's look. Let's have a look. Sign up driver LA. Should have put Uber or Lyft. Let's do Uber. All right. So right here, this is directly from Uber. I'll zoom in. It says driver jobs in Los Angeles, be your own boss. In fact, I know that in some markets, they'll actually just, what is a ZipRecruiter? They have like ads. So here it is. This is a sponsored one. So here it is, right? ZipRecruiter. And these are being paid for by Uber. All right, hold on. Let's see. Find Uber. Okay, so I don't see an active listing there, but they are known to pop up. I know there was one from my city. So let's go to, what is that place called? California. It's up here. It's not there. I don't know. Maybe you know something I don't. Sign up Uber Los Angeles. Here it is. Sign up to drive in Los Angeles. I can't sign in. It's gonna know where I am, and it's gonna change it to that. But this is from the website. United States, California, Los Angeles. Are you searching to be a full-time driver or part-time driver in Los Angeles? Try using Uber instead. This app gives you the flexibility to set your own hours and earn on your own time. So yeah, I don't know of markets where they're really limiting who can sign up except New York City and Toronto. What areas having layoffs? So the biggest area having layoffs right now is definitely Washington, D.C. That's where most political organizations exist that are being fired. So if you live in that market, you're gonna see the direct effects, but there are gonna be cascading effects as well, right? So don't think that just because you don't live there, this isn't important to keep track of. Like someone who lives there needs to keep more track of it, but for other people, it's it'll cascade. It's people don't realize how interconnected the economy is, but it'll cascade. See, even in New York City, it says New York City dethrones DC as nation's chaos capital. Federal layoffs continue, and the DC area's economy could be in trouble. I didn't write that. So it's important to watch, right? I want to be clear. Just because I'm expecting a short-term issue doesn't mean I'm saying it'll carry on long-term. There are always, like, unemployment always goes up in cycles. I do think that this cycle is being forced, and it could have long-term benefits, and it could have long-term negatives. It's not what I'm discussing. I'm just saying you guys need to prepare, right? It's going to be harder to get jobs. These people who are selling their homes in DC, they plan to move somewhere else. And wherever they go, they're going to try to get a job there too, right? So like that's something like you got to keep in mind. Like you might have an influx of people who return back to their hometown, which is where you live, right? And then they start getting jobs, or they become rideshare drivers where you live. Now, is it going to be as big of an impact as what Washington is facing itself? Probably not. But it's still going to impact you, right? Death by 1,000 cuts. Like, even if I'm wrong, I want to be wrong. To be clear, I want to be wrong. But I want you guys to assume I'm right, because the position you can put yourself in by assuming Tristan knows what he's talking about is better than taking the position that everything's okay and I have nothing to worry about. Because that's how you get caught with your pants down. And that's not what we want. Now, let's see what other stories we have here. So, North Texas. Do I want to do this for Texas? No, we're a little short on time. We're going to skip the Texas story. I should make you guys vote on what we talk about. This one is important and interesting. So there are a couple of markets who have it baked into their law how much rideshare drivers are supposed to make. And that's not always a good thing. I know it sounds like I'm a hater. I promise you I'm not. When you artificially create a standard for rideshare drivers, it's going to create a supply and demand issue. Without getting too deep into it, this is happening in New York. This is happening in Boston. This is happening in Seattle. This is happening in LA. This is happening in Minneapolis. Minneapolis is one of the more recent ones. Boston is kind of recent too, but we already covered this. The drivers in Minneapolis aren't happy with the change, right? They requested the change. They fought for the change. They forced the change on Uber and Lyft through law. And the result of it is that they're making less money. So it's always important to track what's happening. That's why, even though I read what Chicago wants, the changes they want, it might be a good thing. It might be a bad thing. It's just, like the best example we have of it kind of working is in Seattle. They get less rides, but they're paid more per ride, and it balances out. I haven't seen people complaining, so it looks like a really good example. But everywhere else, Boston, LA, New York City literally has lockouts where you cannot go online because of how the laws are structured. It's not the laws that cause it. It's Uber and Lyft retaliation. They're responsible for paying people when they're not driving, right? So if you're going to be paying people when they don't have someone in their car, what you're going to want to do is limit how many people are just sitting around. I don't think that's crazy, but these laws that are passed, sometimes they have great intention, the world's best intentions, but they come with things that like they weren't able to foresee, or they didn't want to foresee. Because I spent months, guys, I want to gloat here a little bit. I spent months where people thought I was a shill for Uber and Lyft because I was speaking against how they were trying to increase the pay for Minneapolis, right? There's video evidence out there, and I've always maintained that stance. It would have been easy for me to get on here and, be like, yeah, let's go and get this change and not have to fight with my own audience. But I honestly believed it wouldn't have the impact that people wanted, and it didn't, right? Like, I feel like I have to kind of co-sign. So before we read this story, let's take a quick look at what's happening in Minneapolis after the change. So the change went into effect in January. It's been like 2 months now, I guess. And let's take a quick look at how other drivers are feeling about it. We'll do a video so that I'm not spending too long on this. Ooh, that's 10 months ago. Let's see, hold on, use my filters, sort by this month. This is so hard to find. Look, I'm just gonna look up an article. I don't want to spend too much time on this. Okay, here we go. And the video is on the website.
A pay increase for rideshare drivers in Minnesota is now in effect, and it's being met with criticism. A new law says that Uber and Lyft drivers must be paid a minimum of $1.28 a mile and 31 cents a minute.
But drivers say how this new rate is actually being calculated could actually be worse for them in the long run. Brittany Ehrman live in Minneapolis with more. Brittany.
Paul and Leah, drivers tell me they expected to be paid this new rate every trip, but the policy says they'll be compensated every 2 weeks. Those drivers telling me this new pay structure lacks transparency.
So real quick, for those of you who aren't in markets that have this, by averaging it out over 2 weeks, it makes it possible for Uber and Lyft to offer you a ride that is worth less than the minimum, in hopes that eventually they will offer you incentives or bonuses or rides that get you up to the minimum. So it just becomes, it's not as straightforward as receiving that minimum every single ride, which would be better. They've gamified it to where they're able to continue with their scale of below the bar pricing, in hopes that eventually you'll drive during times where you can make that money back. But it's very deceptive, and when you work out the math, it just doesn't work as well as being paid correctly from the start.
We're still struggling paying the rent, still struggling paying everything.
A disappointing start for rideshare drivers to what was supposed to be a new beginning.
This is insane.
On December 1st, Uber and Lyft drivers in Minnesota were set to receive $1.28 per mile and 31 cents per minute.
Sounds great. Sounds fantastic.
But workers were expecting to get paid that rate per ride right away.
And I get $7.05, but they get $7.88. You think that is a split?
The new policies show that minimum compensation will be paid out to drivers by calculating the minutes and miles driven in a 14-day period, not day to day.
We were completely misled about the language of this bill.
Drivers tell.
Here's the thing, that they fought for that. They got their city council on board. They created an organization, and they went and fought for it and agreed to it. Right. And that's not to say that Uber and Lyft aren't being disingenuous here or having their paws in it or whatever. It's just to say that a lot of times government bodies pass laws that look great on paper, but the implementation, the actuality of what those laws do don't always line up. Right. So I don't fault them for thinking that this was good. Actually, I do. In this particular example, I do, because there was overwhelming evidence that the way they were doing it was wrong. And I have videos of it. I'm not going to go through all of it right now. I went through a really deep dive of it. The videos are there for you to watch. It's on this channel. If you want to watch it, you can go and watch it. But I was crucified for having my opinions on this matter. And then I ended up being right. I didn't want to be right, but I looked at the data, I looked at the information, and I came to the conclusion that what they're trying to do is going to be more like harmful than what they had before.
Tell us they're concerned the new pay system will short workers money because each trip a customer books has different rates, which won't be considered in the long run.
The law requires that over 2 weeks we pay a certain amount for $1.20 or for each mile, and we pay a certain amount for each minute, and the drivers are guaranteed to make that. There is no question they will be making that.
In a phone interview with Uber, the spokesperson not denying some drivers could be paid less money with this system.
But with that system, there is a possibility that they could be losing money.
There's also a possibility they could be making significantly more money.
We reached out to Lyft. They pointed us to their website, which also outlines a similar pay system.
So you get the point. Joe asked, does driving an EV make you more money? So, okay, this is where it gets complicated. I believe that saving money is as important as making money. So the problem with a lot of EVs is that they're too expensive. If you go out and get a brand new Tesla, you're talking $40,000, $50,000. If you go out and get a used Tesla, you might find one for about 20, 25K. Fine. You can get a used Prius that has about 80 to 100,000 miles on it for like 10 grand, right? So let's compare used Tesla 25K to used Prius 10K. Right there alone, you're saving $15,000. If you were to buy the Tesla, you would have to justify $15,000. So I think that what I would like to see is a decrease in the average cost of an electric car, because I don't think people are making enough money to justify the difference, not even in gas savings or anything like that. I do have a story. So let me preface with this. I want a Tesla, not for rideshare. I don't think it's the best car for rideshare. I think it's a great car. Just I don't think it's a great car for rideshare. I think my stance is that the cheapest car you can get to make the most money possible is your best bet. So let's start with that, right? And then let's also now consider the landscape of rideshare. Since the pandemic, drivers have been getting paid less and less every single year. It's difficult for me to suggest someone that they should go and buy an expensive thing that goes down in value to do a job that is paying us less every year, right? So there are black tiers, right? Where if you get a Suburban, right? 7-seater, black XL, you get better rates, you get a lot less rides. And it's to me, it's kind of a gamble, right? Like I personally would love to make a similar amount of money by doing less work. And that's what those vehicles allow you to do. But the investment is bigger, right? A lot of people use debt, and I don't use debt anymore. My car is paid off. I bought my last car cash, and that's because there are things that can happen independent of Uber and Lyft paying you less that can have a huge negative impact on what you have going on. Just last week, and I'll pull this up so you know I'm not making this up. Just last week, people who bought, I believe it was the Model Y, the Tesla Model Y, it qualified to be able to pick up 7 passengers. And just last week, they killed that. Now, a lot of people agree that it shouldn't have been the thing, but if you went out and bought a car, and then they said, your car no longer qualifies for this thing, and you just put money into that thing. You took out a loan on something that's going down in value because you thought it qualified to make this extra money, and then it's gone, right? So was it Lyft that did it, or was it Uber? Lyft, Model Y. XL. Was it Uber? It might be Uber. I feel like it's me. I feel like I'm getting worse at looking for things. I feel like Google's just really not great anymore. All right, this is from 2 weeks ago. This is from Facebook. Let's see. Model Y Black rides. Rideshare. I agree with you. Google is bad. It is not like it used to be. You know what? I'm gonna go to Twitter. This is where I first saw that it was happening. I'm just gonna look up the person who I know shared it, which his name is Buddha, Hustling Buddha. He also has a YouTube channel. You should go check him out. Let's see. I think he has a Model Y too. Black. I remember talking. Here we go. We're getting close. All right, so he says the Model Y is no longer qualifies for black. So Lyft Premium update. Okay, all right. This is giving me breadcrumbs to like search for. All right, so Model Y no longer XL Lyft. This is crazy. Okay, found it. Well, it's not even proof though. It's just people talking about it. Why is this so difficult? I'll just read the comments. It's not that deep. I like to have more proof than this, than just people saying things, but whatever. It says Tesla, this is 14 days ago, Tesla Model Y no longer eligible for black NYC. People just saying it's surprised it took so long. I'd be pissed if I ordered a black and one of them shows up. I can just order electric for half the price and get one. So the overall standpoint here was that there wasn't really enough room in the back seats, the two in the back, for it to qualify to pick up 7 people or 6 people, I guess. But if you went out and made a purchase based off of that information, and then you learned that it's going away, you know, that sucks. So I'm really, when I'm debt free, right, I'll have the margin to be a little more risky with my investments. So if I want to go out and buy a 7-seater for cash, you know, I might do it. But I'm of the mindset right now, just based off of how things are going, that the cheapest way you can get something done to maximize your income is the best way to do it. And I'm team Prius. I bought a Prius. The first car you usually have when you're doing Uber and Lyft is just the car you have, right? Mine was the Volkswagen Jetta. I totaled it in an accident, and then I bought a Prius, right? I put my money where my mouth is. I've been maintaining that the Prius was a better buy compared to all of these other cars, and I went out and got one, and I'm glad I did. If you treat them right, they can last up to 300, 400,000 miles. They're very inexpensive. The parts are inexpensive, and I don't regret the decision. I don't regret the decision at all. So can EV make you more money? Maybe, right? maybe it'll make you more money. Maybe if some of these EVs qualify for better ride types, but is the money you make enough to justify the cost difference from getting something cheaper? So that's what you have to really solve for. And some really good advice on this is to go out and, depending on your market, it might be difficult to do it, but rent the car you're thinking about getting, test it, and see if it's worth it, right? You do make a little less money renting cars. Lyft has said that straight up, have that on video, but test it. Like I want to see if getting an XL car, which is a car that can pick up 7 passengers, is worth it. When you have a car like that, one of your biggest expenses is going to be gas, right? The amount of gas per mileage you get out of that is going to drop significantly. And so like you have to test it. You have to see if it's worth it. And right now, I'm just very pro do it as cheaply as possible. Because one, I'm not trying to be a long-term Uber Lyft driver. It's not the goal. The goal is to put myself in a position to where I can pivot to something else. So there's other YouTubers out there who, they took out loans to buy more expensive vehicles, and they don't really do a breakdown of the costs associated with it, but they're out there. You can go and look for them. I'm not going to talk about them because then I'm going to get looped into some drama, which I'm trying to avoid. So dang, I got super distracted. Let's go back to Boston. So it says Massport wants a big hike in rideshare fees for Logan pickups and drop-offs. So this is right after they just increased the minimum wage for drivers in Boston. One of my social media friends, I guess, people I talk to very often over on Twitter, he has this show called Drivers Coast to Coast, and he's in Boston, and he's always showing things where he feels like he's making less money compared to before. I need to ask him for some like data analysis, but I generally agree based off of what he shows that what Boston used to be like top 3 markets for rideshare, and I think it might have fallen out of that top 3. So it says proposed price would add $15 fee to round trips to the airport in July 2027, raising it from its current rate of $6.50. That's more than double of an increase. I think this is the government doing it, but so to a passenger, even a government, like they're just seeing the total on the screen. If a passenger is paying $100 for a ride, and they don't know the driver's getting 30, and they don't know the airport is $15 of that, and then the rest is going to Uber, they're not going to tip. The more expensive the ride is, the less likely they're probably going to tip, especially when they see an increase like this. So this is not good for rideshare drivers or for passengers or for Uber and Lyft. This is good for the government body that is installing this. It says the Massachusetts Port Authority currently charges rideshare apps a $3.25 fee for pickups and drop-offs at Logan. The plan outlined at a Massport board meeting Wednesday would raise the fee to $5.50 in July and $7.50 in July 2027. Since Uber and Lyft add the fees onto user fares, riders could expect to spend an extra $15 on each round trip, so that's to and from the airport. Massport said the increased fee are part of an overall strategic ground transportation plan of both capital and operating investments. Planned improvements to Logan Airport by Massport include upgrading Logan Express stations and adding electric vehicle charging stations. That could be good for drivers, but at that cost? Any changes in transportation fees would be intended to fund those investments, said Jennifer, a spokesperson for the agency. The proposal was first introduced to the Audit and Finance Committee and the Facilities and Construction Committee in a joint meeting Wednesday and briefly discussed in a meeting of the full board Thursday. The board is expected to vote on the proposal next month. So what is that, March? Massport has not changed its fees in 6 years since it added a $3.25 drop-off fee in 2019 to match its $3.25 pickup fee. Government wants their money. You ever see that meme, that tax meme? The government just wants their money, man. I'm assuming this is government based. Through ride app surcharging commonplace at airport, though ride app surcharges are commonplace at airports around the country, $7.50 would be the highest fee added to any airport. Orlando International Airport currently has the most expensive added fee for pickups at $7. I remember covering this. So this is an example of something that's happening where Uber and Lyft drivers need to get together, right? Like, I didn't mean just Uber and Lyft drivers. Uber and Lyft drivers plus Uber and Lyft plus passengers need to get together push back against stuff like this. I think there are times where I think drivers we're commonly in a tussle with Uber and Lyft, and there are certain things, right? Like insurance. There are certain things where if we join hands, we could be effective in slowing some of this down. But because of the animosity that drivers have with Uber, it's hard, right? It's hard to say, all right, for this area, let's join hands and fight, even though we're still fighting a war over here for something else, you know? So it's difficult, and it makes it not simple. So I don't see that happening. We'll talk about insurance a little later, but insurance is another issue that I've been calling out for a while, that drivers and Uber and Lyft should get together on and go beat up the government for. So let's finish this article and I'll jump to that one. So it says last year, Logan's busiest ever, seeing more than 43 million passengers in 2024, and almost 13 million of them use a rideshare app. As passengers increase at Logan, we expect even more to use ride apps. We need to continue to improve our infrastructure to handle the demand. I think that's fair. I do think that this is a lot of money that you're asking. $3.50, that's what it is now. You're asking to double that one way. I feel like you need to show your budget. You need to show proof of where that money is going and why it's costing so much. The proposal would raise taxi pickup fees from their current rate of $2.25 to $3.50 in July and then $5.50 in July 2027. Employee parking terminal and economy parking, passport gold parking, and limo pickups would also become more expensive. Josh Gold, Uber Senior Director of Public Policy and Communications, said at the Thursday meeting that while Uber fully supports multimodal projects, Massport has excluded rideshare from this process, and that lack of collaboration is a missed opportunity. I don't know if they're talking about like, hey, you should have somewhere rideshare drivers should be able to quickly pick up people. I don't know this airport. I don't know exactly what he's saying. He's not being specific, and I need more specificity. He said the Massport that had ongoing discussions with both Uber and Lyft about the proposal, and that they were made aware that there was going to be a discussion yesterday. Okay. Beyond the supposed lack of collaboration, Gold criticized Massport for keeping Logan one of the few major airports that denies curb access and prioritizing personal vehicles, incentivizing the least efficient mode of transportation. He said the agency should be working with rideshare, not against it. Okay. I think that's fair. I think that if it's weird that you want something that you're not working with for a common ground to pay for the thing that you need. And it kind of feels like bullying here, which, you know, Uber and Lyft, that's the drivers. I'm not excusing that. That's just what it feels like. We urge the board to direct aviation to engage rideshare meaningfully over the next several months to develop a solution that is fair, effective, and future focused. Sometimes I agree with Uber, and this is one of them. I don't think that just because overall, not a fan of Uber, but, you know, call a spade and a heart, and I agree with Uber here. I think this is too much. The only people like the only thing that can change my mind is I need to see the accounting of this stuff. What do you say? 43 million, 13 million people use rideshare. That's like what, 200 and I'm not gonna do math in front of you guys and embarrass myself. So let's do 750 times 13. So that's like, no, there's no way that's almost $1 billion. There's no way. There's no way. Hold on. Times, what was that? $7? No. So like I said, it shouldn't be doing math on stream. So about $100 million. I don't know. I don't know how much it costs to do what they want to do. I don't know. I have no idea. All right, Joe, I see that you're going off in the chat. Let me see where you're at. It says Elantra is beat up and they want to sell it. What year is your Elantra? Does it qualify for rideshare still? What does beat up mean? And will you make more money selling it or will you make more money using it? Right. So those are the first couple of things. It says my launcher has been stolen multiple times and damaged, and now I need a less of a headache car. Get more tips, maybe. I would research why your launcher specifically has been stolen so much, because who's to say that the next car you get won't be? You know, what is the thing that's causing it to be stolen? I know Priuses are like, people like to steal the Cadillac converters in there. Is that what they steal? I think that's what they steal. Get more tips. I think that having a clean car can increase your tips. Having a not beat up car can increase your tips. I do think that tips are really generated from the driver, right? From your personality, from your ability to talk, have conversations, figure out when not to talk. And I think most of that actually comes from the driver. But you can be the most personable driver in the world, but if you don't have a clean car, or if your car is banged up, that might stop the tips right there. So I see where you're getting at. He says, what tips do you have for someone driving Lyft for the first time? That's from Carlos. My tips would be, the first thing. So if you're moving to a new market, this is how I have to frame it for myself. If I were to move to a new market, what would I do to figure out how to make money as quickly as possible? The first thing I'm going to do, a lot of people are not going to like this answer, is I would work as much as possible for like 2 weeks, right? And you want to be a little strategic about it, because the fastest way to figure out where you want to be in your market is to be there, right? And the more hours you put into it, the faster you're going to learn that. So learning your market, it sounds so cliche, but that's number one. That's one of the most important things you can do. Figuring out when is the best time to work. In my market, I can tell you what it is, but it's not going to be useful unless you apply it to your market. And also understand that you might live in a market where it's just being a Lyft driver just doesn't make sense, right? So that's important too. And you might be starting at a point in the season where it might be dead in your area, but it's not always dead. For example, in Charleston, most of the business happens between March and it starts dying off in October after Halloween. Outside of that, it's so slow. Like there's like 3-4 months where it's not even worth leaving the house, right? But people always think my market's one of the best markets, and my market's a great market when it's at its peak. But if you move to Charleston and you're saying I'm going to become a Lyft driver, it's January, you're going to think Charleston's the worst market in the world, right? So you're going to have to understanding your market is like the big important thing. And I would challenge you that as you're learning and developing in your market, you continually try things that you tried before, even if it failed, right? If working between 2 p.m. and 10 p.m. wasn't profitable in January, that doesn't mean it won't be profitable in the summer, right? The next thing I would tell you to do, and this still falls within knowing your market, figure out school closings, figure out when they're going on break, figure out what events are happening in your town and work around those. Learn what those events are. When you're looking at your map and you're seeing bonuses, right? If you've never taken a ride with Lyft, I don't know if you have or haven't, if there are surges and bonuses. I have a video coming out very soon that does a better breakdown of this. Make sure you subscribe. A lot of drivers will just see the surges on the map, work it, go home, and call it a day. That's fine. I think it's important to figure out why it was surging. If you start to understand why things are surging, then you're able to be there before it surges. You're going to see a lot of people who complain and say, yeah, these surges and these bonuses, they'll pop up on the map, but when I'm on the way to them, they disappear. We don't want to be reactive. We want to be proactive. We want to know what's happening before it happens. And you're not going to know everything. But a really good example of this is, let's say you have an Amazon fulfillment center in your town and you pick someone up from there and it's slow, right? It's just a regular ride. Talk to that person and say, hey, how often does shift change happen, right? How many shift changes do you have? I live close to Mercedes-Benz, and I know they have 3 shift changes every single day. And there's one that's late at night. And occasionally during that shift change, it will surge, but the surges be short-lived, that if you're not in the area by the time it's surging, it doesn't make sense going there because it'll be gone. But because I've kind of predicted where things are happening, I'm able to go there before it happens, capitalize on the fact that it is happening. And you can apply this to a lot of things. You can look at weather, right? At the beginning of my week, I'm always looking at the weather, and it's not always accurate, but it gives me an idea. If I know it's going to rain on this day at this time, that's where I want to be, right? If I know that it's a Monday holiday, I know that Thursday, Friday, Saturday is going to be busier than a normal Thursday, Friday, Saturday, right? Like we just had President's Day. And even though it's slow period, I made sure I worked that weekend because more people seem to travel to my market on those days. But that might not be true of your market. People might empty out from your city on President's Week because they want to go to somewhere else. So it's about figuring out where people are moving and why. If you can have consistent answers to that, you do very well. If you figure out when, if you're in a tourist town like I am, I know that on a regular weekend, Monday mornings is when tourists like to go to the airports. So if I get my butt out of bed at 3 a.m. and go downtown, around 3:30, it's still a little slow. I like to be there a little bit earlier, but around 3:45, 4 o'clock, that's when the surges start popping up. And I don't even go to the airport. The airport is 20-minute drive. I don't do the airport runs. What I do is I'll take the bonuses that pop up on the map. It could be like a $5 bonus, and I'll look for short rides that keep me in the bonus area. So like there's a lot. I can go on about this for days. I have a video that I'm dropping very soon that covers this. It's literally, it's called How I Doubled My Income by Predicting Bonuses. I'm going to show you the entire like masterclass of what I do to predict bonuses. I'm going to share it with everyone. I'm going to share it with all of you. So good question. I see that vomit bags are a good suggestion. Yes, vomit bags are a good suggestion. Audrey says, try to anticipate where your bonuses will pop up. So yeah. So David, so when I said it, I thought I was wrong. I said catalytic converters, but you did exactly what I did, but I did it verbally. So yeah, let's see. I'm gonna go through one more thing. There are, of course, other articles I want to share with you guys, but I want to get into the habit of sharing my net worth. A long time ago, months ago, a long time ago, I got into a beef, and that person was spreading lies about my financial situation, and I've always been upfront about it. And I promised that I'd be more clear about my financial situation, and not just for the beef. I'm on a journey to be debt free, right? Not just to be debt free. That's just part of the journey, actually. I'm on a journey to achieve the ability to do whatever I want, whenever I want, and not think about the money that's associated with it, aka financial freedom. And the major roadblock preventing me from doing that is debt. So I'm going to start tracking my net worth because I want to be able to say, this is where I started. I showed you guys that journey. And then, a year from now, to review that journey, look back and say, this is where I started. This is where I am now. Because I know for a fact, if I don't document this journey, when I've made it, when I'm debt free and I'm financially secure, you're gonna have people who say, you don't understand. You're not in my position. You're giving me advice, but you're not in my financial position. And I want to be able to point back and say, look, this is when I was in your position. And understand that today's the best I've ever been. So what I'm going to show you, in my opinion, is still bad. But it's the best that we've been so far, right? So today's net worth isn't like indicative of where I was when I started my channel. But I want to share that. I want to share this part of the journey with you guys. I got automatically logged out. All right, so I have to sign back in. All right, Joe says, do you make videos about your taxes and write-offs? Do you use a personal phone or separate phone for work? I do have videos on my channel for last tax year and for the year before that. If you go to the main page, one of them should be a breakdown. You know what? Let me show you right now. I can show you right now. I think this is important stuff, so I'll show you. I need to do one for this year. I'm behind because I'm a procrastinator. but I try to show my taxes every year. Like I try to show you guys exactly what I'm making with Rideshare. I don't include my other non-Rideshare sources, but as far as Rideshare goes, I really do one of the few that actually puts that level of information out there. Because I believe that what makes Rideshare worth doing is taxes. So for those of you who are new or have never filed your taxes with Rideshare before, we make our money on this thing called a write-off. Every mile that we drive, we can write off 67.5 cents. So let's say that you're averaging $1 per mile, right? And it's some people are a little lower, some people are a little higher, but let's, for the sake of math, let's say $1 per mile. For every dollar you earn, you're able to deduct 67% of that from being taxed. So you earned $1. The government says, okay, we're going to pretend that you earned $33, right? Sorry. All right, let me start over. Let's use $100. I think $100 would be easier. So for every $100 you make, you get to subtract $67 from being taxed, like from your taxable income. So instead of being taxed at $100, you're going to get taxed at $33, whatever your tax rate is. So let's assume a 10% tax rate, right? You're going to have to pay $3.30 in taxes for every $100 you make. So if you're able to keep your actual expenses lower than the tax deduction, the money you make, the difference in money you make is tax-free. I'll restate that. If you're able to keep your expenses less than your tax rate of underneath the write-off amount, that's tax-free dollars. And I'll show you something, but it's not accurate. But it's still important. Still important. Before we do, because I have ADD, I will show you what videos I'm talking about so that you can go and watch them later when we're done here. So this is on my homepage. You see where it says the mileage tracker that exposes Uber and Lyft? This is just my tax video explaining my write-offs. I took it from the angle of I tracked my mileage myself using a spreadsheet that I made that I'll show you how to get. And this is how much more money I saved using my mileage tracker instead of relying on Uber and Lyft. So that's kind of where this video comes from, but it is tax-based. And then there's another one. Let's see.
Did you know that there's a
wrong button. Oh, here we go. So it's not here. The other one is NEC explained. Let's see if that pops it up. I need to put this one on the front page too. Man, search sucks right now. NEC explained. It's pretty much where I go through the tax document and I break everything down. This one. No, is this it? No. It's not it. Here it is. And it's the first one that came up and I just, look at me. I'm so stupid. All right, so it says $6,935 tax credit explained. Actually, here's the link for it. But don't watch it until this is done. That's the link for it. I'll pin it so that you guys can access it later when we're done here, right? And then, so it just kind of breaks everything down. This is from 2 years ago. And then the one on the home screen is the one I did from last year. And then I'm going to make one for this year. I'm just behind. I haven't filed my taxes yet. But this is where the money is made for driving. And then I forgot what I said I was going to do before. Let me see. I'm going to check out the comments. All right, so personal. I didn't answer that one. I have a personal phone and I have a business phone. Initially, I only had a personal. I wanted to keep my expenses as low as possible. The reason I got another phone was because I needed to switch service providers. And I didn't want to lose my number. And they had a really good deal too. I was having an issue where during busy nights, there's a lot of congestion on the T-Mobile network, and my service would slow down so much that I'd miss rides. Rides would pop up. I can't accept them. By the time the service figures out what's going on, it's gone. And that was impacting my income. So I got another phone. The phone I got is a folding phone. It's not in here, and that's fine. It's a phone that it was expensive. It's a phone that lets me have Uber on one side and Lyft on the other side. So I'm able to see both. And I feel like that alone has justified itself. But like I said, don't go into debt. Don't get a phone on debt. I see there's some debt comments in here. I'm going to get to them. We're going to fight. Sam says debt with low interest rate might be good if your investing returns are higher. So you know what's better than using debt to invest? Not using debt to invest, right? So there's that, right? And then in a perfect world where we just look at numbers, it can always seem that way, right? It can always seem like borrowing at 4% is great if you're able to get 8%. But if math were that simple, we'd all be okay. And one, for my lifestyle, my goal is financial freedom, right? So if I take out debt, I now have payments that I have to make, right? I can't just stop my job and go and do something else because I have payments that I have to make. I have to keep up with that debt, right? I don't want that. I want to be able to wake up tomorrow morning, look at my wife and say, hey, I'm tired of America right now. Let's go to Japan for a couple months. You can quit your job. I'll quit mine. We'll figure it out. You can't do that when you have like payments, right? I don't have any car payments. And here's one thing I'll tell you. I used to believe that. I used to agree with you fully. And then I went on this radical plan by Dave Ramsey called the Baby Steps. And when I review how my life has been, even though I'm still in the baby steps, it has been significantly better because I decided that I'm against debt. And a really good example is when I got into a car accident. So I had just finished paying off my Volkswagen Jetta, but it was getting up there in miles. So I said, okay, let me start putting some money aside just in case the car craps out, something happens. And then I got into an accident. It took about a month and a half for insurance to pay me the money. Now, think about this. If I took out debt to get that car, I would still be making those car payments until I got the money. How am I going to make these car payments while my car can't be driven? And I'm an Uber and Lyft driver. I need a car to make money, right? If I didn't have that car paid off, that's something I would have had to deal with. The first thing that came to my mind was the piece that, man, this situation sucks, but at least I don't have a car payment. The second thing that happened in that same scenario that I found to be super beneficial was that I already had, my wife and I already had enough money to pay cash for a car without waiting for the insurance to reimburse us for the car, the Volkswagen. So I was able to go find the car I wanted, right? Without feeling pressured to get into a bad deal. I was able to bring up a bunch of options. My wife and I talked it over, which ones we should get. I ultimately sided with her on the one we should get. It was between getting something really cheap or getting something a little more expensive with a lot less miles. I ended up getting on Facebook Marketplace. And I haven't made this video because, again, I'm a procrastinator, but I have all the footage. I just need to make it. I bought a car for about $12,000, 80,000 miles, 2016 Prius. Looks like it had one owner. I paid cash for it. And once I eventually got the money, it was about $7,000, 7,000 minus the 12. So I paid about $5,000 for this car. And if I had debt, I would have, if I wasn't preparing myself for like a life without debt, I would have had to either, if I wanted to continue doing rideshare, I would have had to borrow money for a car. So like, I like the further I get into this journey, that is, I will admit, puts me in a minority position. I know a lot of people don't believe this stuff, but I don't think that I've met someone who has paid off their debt and then said it was a bad idea. And then let's say I get to the point where I am debt free. If I change my mind, I can just go and get more debt. And this is a really good segue. I'm just going to show you my net worth. Let's jump into that. I'll come back to the comments. So keep them coming. If you want to disagree with me, that's fine. You're welcome to disagree. I don't believe my view is the only view. I don't think the way I handle finances is the only way I handle finances. All right, so this is something I just set up, so ignore this change. What's not included in here, just to be transparent, is my house value or my mortgage loan. I'm on the Baby Steps by Dave Ramsey. Step 1 is $1,000 starter emergency fund. Right, this is just to take care of the average thing or emergency that might pop up. Step 2, I have one for my business and one for the household. So step 2 is to pay off all your debt, not including the house. So what we have here is our assets, not including our retirement fund. We have money in retirement, but we are not touching that to pay off debt. We are not borrowing from our future. That's how I see it. So that's not something we're going to do. And then our liabilities are $95,000. And that's student loans between the two of us. So we have about, $60,000 of debt that's not house related that we need to pay off. And that's what the goal is. The goal is to do that before the end of summer. I think it's possible. It's going to take some hustling, but it is possible. Where I really realized that, I'll give you some more stories about how not relying on debt or not trying to pay off debt has helped us. We got married 2 years ago ish, right? 2 calendar years ago. And we were trying to pay cash for the wedding. We ended up paying cash for the wedding. But while we were saving for the wedding, our air conditioner went out and we had to get a new roof. And we thought we were going to have to pay out of pocket for it because the insurance company that was covering us went bankrupt. The lessons we learned by not relying on debt was extremely important, right? Being able to plan a wedding already is problematic. If anyone out there has planned a wedding, you know what I'm talking about. 2 people coming together, figuring out what's important to each other. It's some work. And then doing it on a budget, it gave us the confidence and communication skills that we felt would really strengthen us moving forward. There's a statistic out there that says that most people who take out a certain amount of debt to have a wedding, their marriages don't last. And I think that's because that's a very bad foundation to start with. And no, that's not the debt you're talking about. You're talking about investment debts, this, that, and a third. And that's fine. I'm kind of segueing from that. But once my wife and I paid off our cars, we're a household with 2 cars and no car payment. The amount of money we stack is it's crazy. You'd be surprised how quickly you can save money when you start saying no to debt. And I think that if you're a rideshare driver, you're not really in a position, unless you've been doing it a long time and you've been great with your finances, you're not really in a position to justify having debt. Most of us became rideshare drivers because we got fired. We needed the extra money. We realized that, depending on your market, it's good. So we stayed in it. Right. And that's fine. I'm not discounting that. I don't think we are in the category of people, the tax bracket of people who can reliably say that we're using arbitrage with debt and it's working for us. I just don't. If it's working for you, I'd want to see your whole finances. I want to see everything. Let's put it down on the table. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about what you're trying to get out of life. Because the reality is, if most of us didn't have to do Uber and Lyft, we wouldn't. Right? I don't want to be an Uber and Lyft driver. The money's good. There are other things I want to do, but the money is the constraint. I'm trying to solve for that. So going back here, I don't know if this was on the screen before or not. My assets right now are $37,664. We're pregnant. My wife is pregnant, and we haven't been making any debt payments. We've been making our minimums, which is just the student loans, and we're just stacking money until the baby's here. Then once the baby's here, we're going to drop this on the debt. I would really love to have this gone before she is here, but that doesn't look like it's going to happen. So $95,000 in loans. We started with a lot more than that. The car loan was about 15 grand that I had initially. Her car loan was about the same. So 30 grand. We paid off credit cards. We don't use them anymore. And yeah, so this is what it looks like right now. Let's see, what is our net? Does it show our net here? No. Let me see. Hold on. I just started using this website today. Like, I really want to show this to you guys. So I just kind of signed up today. And figuring it out as I go. It's kind of annoying that it doesn't just show the net. Ah, here's the net. Okay, here we go. All right, so the net is, as of today, February 20th, 2025, our net worth, $57,336. I'll probably do this once a month. I will do this when I come back from March, and we'll see let's see if we can get this down to underneath $50,000. That would be cool. I think that's a cool goal. $7,000 in a month and change. That's what we'll do. So that's the goal. I'm gonna look at the comments now, see what you guys are saying. Let me zoom in here so you guys make sure I'm not just making stuff up. There you go. That's my net worth right there. This ignore this number. Like I said, I just started using it, so it's a little weird. All right, Joe says, or J.O. says, debt isn't bad if you have income. We just went through that. David says, if you have more income to pay off the debt, why did you need to take the debt in the first place? David says, some exceptions like mortgage, of course. I agree with the mortgage. I do think you should be in a good position to take out a mortgage. I think that you shouldn't let the mortgage be more than 25% of your home take-home pay. My mortgage is $900. But with a house, it's one of the few debts that goes up in value. So there are some exceptions to it. Audrey says, right, just pay cash and keep it moving. I like it. David says, I'm thinking debt you hold on to for a while, by the way. If you're trying to pay the cash back reward game, that's different. As long as whatever you're putting on credit, you can immediately pay off. That is a game you can play. For me, there are two issues with that. The first issue is everything's always great financially until something goes wrong. And then that's when you start seeing people rely on credit cards. I was supposed to show this earlier and I completely forgot. This is one of the things that make me realize, or made me start like paying attention that a recession might be coming. Let me see if I can find it. Did I share it on Twitter? I'll put it on Facebook. I'll just get it from Facebook. Shared it with my cousins. Here it is. Here it is. All right, so this is a chart that shows the percent of loan balances that are 30 plus days delinquent. All right, so someone didn't pay their bill for 30 days. It's a really good chart to like. Let me download this. I think it'd be better if I just pulled it up that way. I want to make it bigger. Yeah, okay. All right, so percent of loan balances 30 days delinquent. What's the date on this? So this is 2024 Q2. Like this, it's Q1. This is up to date. Data through Q2. This is data through the end of last year. So this is the end of January and the end of December in 2024, January. So you can see this is right here. This is pandemic, right? When the pandemic happened, right? Is this pandemic? No, this is the financial crisis, 2008. I was a young chap at this time. I wasn't paying attention. So I don't really have any frame of reference. I don't even know what I was doing in 20. I think I was in high school. I don't really remember. I'm not trying to go back that far. So we see here. All right. So I think this was like COVID era. We see the dipping student loans. I think that's when Biden won, and student loan payments practically went to zero. We had the income-driven repayment plan, which is going away, and people just didn't have to pay. And that's why there's that sudden drop there, right? And we also got stimulus checks and money and things like that. And we were doing fine for a while. People were paying their mortgages, their HELOCs, their credit cards. Now, credit cards right now is the highest, right? There's been a skyrocket effect that has happened. People are late on paying their credit cards. People are late on paying their car loans. People are late on paying their mortgages, right? If this trend continues, right? And this is before all the massive layoffs that the government is going through. This trend is likely to continue. So there are people out there who use their credit card thinking that I'll just pay it off at the end of the month, but then they lose their job. Like I want you guys to think about at the beginning of the stream, we went through hundreds of thousands of people who don't have a job anymore, who didn't realize that they wouldn't have a job. They didn't foresee this coming. Not only could they have had balances on their credit cards, they now probably, I hope they don't do this, are going to start relying on those credit cards until they get that next job to cover their expenses and their bills. So in a perfect world, a lot of the financial advice out there sounds great. But I've just lived long enough to where I know the world isn't perfect. And I'd rather cater my finances to that imperfection than to try to maintain some resemblance to what I think a perfect financial world should look like. So like the things will happen, right? That's what happens. So that's one reason why I've just stopped using credit cards. But to David's point, there's the point game. You can play it, and some people win at it. But now this is more morality, and I'm not trying to put my morality on you. If you want to do the credit card thing, that's fine. But for me, the hidden layer here is credit card points are kind of a redistribution from people who can't afford their lifestyle to people who can, right? Where your credit card points don't come from thin air. Part of it comes from transaction fees, and part of it comes from other people paying interest on their debt because they don't have enough money to pay off their cards. And I just decided, I personally don't want to fund that game. I'm like, I know I can't exit every game out there, right? There's some games I'm going to be part of, but I just decided that this is one that I don't have to be part of. Now, if you want to do it, that's fine. I'm not the morality police. I've just decided that I'd rather not. I'm not playing that game. Sam Lee says, watching the stock market buying lows, you can make a lot of money if you make the right trades. I agree. And I think that someone who is in a financial position to do that will make better decisions than someone who isn't, right? Like if I have, like, I don't know exactly the phrasing here. It's something like when I get desperate, that's when I know I'm about to make a bad decision, right? People who are in a financial position to weather the storm can make better decisions while the storm is happening, right? And that was a big motivator to why I started on this path. I started this YouTube channel before I became an Uber Lyft driver. My goal was to teach people how money works, right? I started learning how the stock market works, and I want to teach that to people. And then somewhere along the way, I realized I'm not in a financial position to take advantage of the prosperity that could happen, right? Money makes money. I was playing around on Robinhood. I put $1,000 in there. My car got towed because I wasn't up to date on my payments. But now I needed that $1,000. So regardless, I didn't have enough money. I had to wait to a paycheck. I couldn't just go out and drive, make the money and do it. I had to wait 2 weeks for my next paycheck. So I had to sell my stocks at whatever the price was because I wasn't in a financial position to, one, make sure my car didn't get towed. How stupid of me. And then to two, pay the money to get my car towed. Even though I had enough money, but because it was in the wrong place, I had to pay a fine. I took a loss on that money to do it, And it's instances like that made me realize I need to be in a financial position to take advantage of this stuff. Like when the housing market collapsed, not old enough, but if I were, and I was not in a financial position to take advantage of it, then I missed out, right? COVID, there was a huge wealth transfer during COVID that I wasn't able to take advantage of because I wasn't in a position to, right? Stocks went down, would have been a great time to buy. When other people are selling, that's when you want to buy. It's the general rule of like stocks. But I wasn't in a position to do so. And so what I've recently realized is if we are heading into a recession, I am in a much better position, not just to protect myself from it, but to take advantage of it, right? One of my goals is to move, right, sometime this year. And I want to be in a position that if the housing market is crashing in Vegas or DC, let's say I wanted to move to DC, I don't. The housing market is crashing right now. The average house is $135,000 cheaper because of all the government firings. Now, let's say in 4 years, the administration changes and then we start hiring again, for better or worse. If I took advantage of that scenario and bought a home in Washington, I'm going to have not instant, but I'm going to have higher than normal appreciation in a home that I bought in Washington if all the government workers come back. Now, I'm not saying that that's my plan. What I am stressing is following the path that I'm on now has put me in a much better position to protect myself from what's happening and to potentially take advantage of what's happening. So I'm like, we can talk theory all day. We can look at the numbers all day. But when it comes to my life, I'm having the biggest realizations of how positively what I'm doing is impacting my life compared to how it was before when I wasn't on this plan. Like just using specific examples that are not from a perfect picture of financial situation. David says, but things like a car, pay cash and not worry about financing with credit. I co-sign that, especially with a car. And then with a car, we don't really talk about the psychology of it. The amount of money you're likely to spend on a car when paying cash is usually different than taking out a loan. Even if you have $45,000, there's something different about parting with that $45,000 versus just taking out a loan. It feels like monopoly money. Like the psychology of it is different. So when you're willing to just wait and save the cash, it kind of insulates you. It makes sure that you're making a good decision or the decision you want to make. And it kind of like, how can I say this? It helps you justify it. It helps you know if this is really what you want or don't want. And that has, I think that would save a lot of people from making mistakes as well. Jo says, who do you bank with? Is it a high yield savings like Ally Bank? I used to use Ally. They kind of screwed me over and a lot of people. And because I don't want them to sue me, they're not going to sue me. But I want to make sure I like to co-sign what I say here. I don't want people to think I'm talking out my butt. Ally hack. They got hacked a few times. And after like the second or third time, I was like, all right, we're not doing this anymore. So no, I don't use Ally. We do use, I think we're using Goldman Sachs right now. I'm pretty sure. This is from September 18th, 2024. This is like in the midst of us like saving for our wedding and stuff. So, but not making this stuff up. Ally Bank may have compromised your personal data in an April data breach. Ally is facing a proposed class action lawsuit over an April data breach in which an unauthorized user accessed customers' sensitive information, including their social security numbers. The complaint filed this month in the U.S. District Court of Western District of North Carolina alleges that the breach compromised a former and current Ally Bank customer. So this happened to us like twice that year. And we decided, nah. But no, there's a good point. We are using the high yield savings account. We keep enough money in our general, I'll break down the structure. I have a business account that my wife has access to. That's kind of where my rideshare money and my YouTube money flow into. And then I commit to paying a certain amount to the household account. That's also where her funds go. We both have access to this account. And then we have our savings account, which is where the emergency fund is. I also have a business emergency fund savings account, which is where the emergency fund is. We keep about enough bills in the personal bank account to pay our monthly bills. And then pretty much at the end of every month, whatever like extra on top of that, we put into the savings account, the high yield savings account. So that's kind of basic structure of what we have going on. David says, are those student loans public or private? They are public. You can try to do the PSLF loan forgiveness. That takes too long. I think Andre has like 10 years or something like that on that. I also don't think that's going to be an option given the new administration. I'm going to have to start actually paying on them soon again, which is fine because I'm glad I put myself in this position. I'm glad I didn't sit back and wait for Biden to do something about my student loans. Would have been nice, right? I'm not speaking against it. It would have been nice, but I've decided that I can't let my financial situation be dictated by government, right? I can't, right? It's part of that protection plan. So I'm glad that we were paying it down. I'm glad that we weren't like waiting for it, but it would have been really nice if $90,000 were wiped off from our debt. We'd be debt free, not including the house. We'd be debt free, and we would have almost 40 grand just to do something with, right? It would have been great, but that's not the world we're living. And I'll pay it off, right? I took out the loan. I'll pay it off. David says, it feels like we've been in a recession since the housing market crashed. Well, that's not true. The economy has been expanding. Real wage has gone up. It's just you've been a student that whole time. So that's on you. Oh, so you were screwed by Ally too. So a lot of people. Ally was very, very good. It was, apart from being hacked, I really did like them. But, you know, here we are. All right, so that's it for today. I wanted to end at 9. It's 9:20. So I'm going to go. I had a lot of fun talking with you guys. I'll make sure I share my net worth with you guys more frequently. Next week will be the last podcast that we do until April. Make sure you subscribe to this channel and you subscribe to the Clips channel. If you go to the homepage for this channel, there's the Clips channel where I chop up segments from the podcast and I put them out there. Is there anything else that's important? I don't know. Well, I hope you guys have a great day. Make a lot of money. If you want access to my spreadsheet, I'll show you my spreadsheet really quickly. It's not up to date. I haven't filled it out completely just because I'm a procrastinator. And I'll just show you. But again, these aren't accurate numbers, but I'm just showing you for example's sake. So over here is where I put my mileage. I just read my odometer and I put the numbers in and it calculates the miles automatically. I'm able to assign personal or business use. And then it separates it up here. You see that I had 1,463 business mileage in January. It shows you the total time I've been driving, the average time, earnings per hour. Now this is true, like door to door time. Again, all of my numbers, I haven't included all of my income into this, but you see my average, it's even higher than that. But it breaks down your average per mile, your expenses, right? I need to add my insurance to this, my car wash to this. But my gas is here. My gas is accurate. Anytime I go and buy gas, I put it in immediately. So you can see that, and my mileage, my total mileage is accurate, and my gas is accurate. So this isn't all of my expenses, but you can see that per mile, I pay 8 cents for gas. Per hour, I pay $2.27 per gas. That's not accurate. It's a lot lower than that because I haven't put my time in here. I'll fix this. If not by next week, I'll definitely fix it for April. I've been procrastinating. I haven't been on top of my stuff, but this also estimates how much taxes you will have to pay. And it also estimates how much you should set aside for tires, oils, and brakes. If you want to get access to this, you can do it through YouTube. I'll show you where specifically. You can become a member, right? Membership is like $5 a month, or maybe it might be $7, but you can literally become a member for 1 month. Become a member, download everything, and then cancel and still have the spreadsheet. I'm not trying to nickel and dime you guys. I do put effort into making this, and I think that's fine. But if you want to support the channel, becoming a member is a great way to do it. It lets me know that the information I put out there is valuable. People want that information, and let's see, where's that membership button? Actually, the membership button should be in the description. Let's see, where's that membership button? Bro, what's happening here? Okay, it should be in the description. Yeah, right here, business tracker spreadsheet. Click it. It should bring you to the membership portal. There it is. So it's $9.99. If you want to support the channel, go ahead and do it. Right, I put some good information out there, information that helps you make more money, and I plan on like putting more information in the membership. I'm not going to say what it is. I've shared too many secrets with you guys, but I'm going to go. Thank you for spending time with me. Make sure you check out the other videos. Go to the homepage, check out those tax videos. It is tax season, and just do what you got to do to make money and keep your spending as low as possible. Peace.